Hello and welcome to Sports Opinion, the weekly sports talk show on Channel 18. That's Public Access TV. My name is Dirk Keller. This is my buddy Bob Boyd.
Hi, Dirk Keller.
Hello, Bob Boyd. Nice to have you back.
Nice to be back.
All the way across the panel is Bud Supple. Bud, it's been a while.
Yes.
You feeling well?
Oh, perfect.
You don't look so well. No, just kidding.
Good to have you back, buddy.
I like your shirt though, bud.
Well, you know why I have it on? I put my Cub shirts away.
As you should. You should
Good
burn
idea.
those Cub shirts.
Good idea.
That's another story for another show. Earl Murphy is here, and why not? He's
Earl.
90 years old, and it's his show, and he ought to be here every week.
Almost
and today,
91 almost.
pushing
Yep.
91. It won't be long.
Larry Wazorek and I have the same birthday.
Larry's not almost 91.
No. We've got a very special guest here today, and we are honored to have Iowa Athletics Director Gary Barta here. Gary, welcome back to Sports Opinion.
Well, thank you for having me back. I must
Yes.
not have screwed it up too bad the last time I visited you. You re-invited me.
We get a lot of compliments when you're on the show, when your coaches are on the show, and I think one of the reasons is because you're very frank. You really don't beat around the bush, and we respect that here. And we don't ask the hard questions, but, you know, it's what this show's all about. It's just guys sitting around and talking, and if we had coffee or anything, I guess maybe that'd fit in. But, no, we just like to sit around and talk about the Hawks. It's what we do.
That's right up my wheelhouse.
Well, I want to let the viewers know that it will be 8 years that you have been at the helm at Carver Hawkeye Arena in your office. 8 years already. Has the time just gone by like that?
You know, like most people, sometimes it feels like I just got here, and sometimes it feels like dog years. So somewhere in between. But it's, I think consistently from the day I was offered the job to today, it's just a perfect fit for me, for my family, and it's just been a great ride.
Yeah.
Not always easy, but certainly a great place to do what I love to do.
Well, we appreciate that. You replaced Bob Bowlesby almost 8 years ago. Bob left to become the athletic director at Stanford, and he has since left Stanford and is now...
I can't keep a job.
No,
What's
he
going on?
can't. He's the commissioner of the Big 12. And, of course, there are lots of rumors running rampant that someday he'll be atop the NCAA. And I guess we can talk about that later. But a lot of changes go by these days in the world of college athletics very quickly. And since you've taken over almost 8 years ago, there have been a lot of changes at Iowa and a lot of changes in the Big Ten. And we're about to embark on another major change in the Big Ten with the addition of Rutgers and Maryland to our conference. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about that. That means the end of the Legends and Leaders divisions in football, which personally I'm grateful for,
Exactly.
for a number of reasons. I never liked the names, but I didn't like the alignments either. And
Exactly.
now it seems more natural. We've got Wisconsin back. We've got Illinois back. And I thought you'd tell us what to expect with Rutgers and Maryland in the fold now, please.
Well, it's one of those topics we could use the entire show to talk about, how we got here and why. But if you boil it down, let's just talk about the football divisions for a moment. There were pluses and minuses to the change when Nebraska joined, about whether you like the names Legends or Leaders or not, whether you like the fact that the conference was split. One of the advantages of this addition of Rutgers and Maryland, in my opinion, is we do go back to more of an east-west separation, and our fans will benefit from us playing Wisconsin, Illinois, Nebraska, Minnesota, Northwestern, Minnesota, whoever. If I left somebody out, but every year the geography makes more sense.
And these are all teams in the Central Time Zone,
Correct.
I think, and that's basically
They're really all drivable,
Yeah.
and so from
Yes,
that
that's right.
aspect, I really am excited about getting. We're going to have to send a map to the University of Illinois on how to get to Iowa City. They haven't been here in so
Yes.
long in football.
That's right.
But
we go there this year, right?
I think that's
so.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep,
We
that's
do,
what I
yeah.
thought.
Well, maybe we'll need a map to remember how to return to Champaign.
No,
But
you just
No,
need to
Hawkeyes
follow
are
the
smart
smell.
enough to- Yeah, we know.
you said that just for
follow
the
the
record.
smell
I
of
didn't say
Champaign.
that.
Yeah.
So
Even
that's
I could drive to Champaign.
So that's a positive byproduct. The other positive byproduct, Anecdotally, I've had several fans tell me that they're interested and excited to go to Maryland because it's new, it's different, it's a part of the country that hasn't historically been a part of the Big Ten.
It's a great campus.
True, yeah.
It's a great campus.
Yep, I've been
It's
there.
on the East Coast.
So
Yeah.
we're getting, and I know we'll talk a little bit about television and how over the last 50 years that has changed college sports. It's changed high school sports. Shoot, you guys have a televition show, so
Yeah.
That's scary.
you know,
25 years
a
and
lot
running.
has changed over the years in college athletics. This is a piece of that change. I remember when the recent announcement of us moving the Big Ten basketball tournament into Washington D.C. for a year. There's talk about moving it into New York. While that's different,
That'd be really a great move.
well, and I think that's a possibility. And so, what can I gauge that on? Well, when we went to Madison Square Garden 2 years ago with men's basketball to the finals of the NIT, our fans embraced it. Our student athletes loved being in New York.
Yes.
Yeah.
And right now, the way it's set up, we'll still have the vast majority of our basketball championships in the Midwest.
Yeah.
In the next 10 years, it will be there at least 8 times, once in D.C. and then maybe once in New York, which I think our fans on an occasional basis will be excited about.
Oh, yeah.
I
I
agree.
think DC and New York are great ideas.
You know what? The only one thing that bothers me about the
Expansion.
expansion is I don't know when we're going to be on television. And can we get I know what
You talking football and basketball?
Yeah, that's right.
Anything?
Yeah.
Well, the good news is with the Big Ten Network, we're on television every game. Whether it's basketball, football, every game is on national TV. And, that's a change that's been a positive. Now, in Iowa, what we had that was unique, and it's a credit to Bill Bolster and it's a credit to Lute, and we had this wonderful statewide network. So most of our games were on television, at least in Iowa.
Yes.
But we weren't on
Yeah.
national television every
Yes.
game. Well, that's one of the positives about the change is we're always on national television, which when you're talking to recruits,
Oh,
that's
boy.
an important aspect.
What are you gonna do as far as you're gonna have to play a couple days?
What do you mean?
Couple what?
A couple days?
Well, to have them all on TV,
Well, like ABC does, some of the games are more regional. So they might show one game in the East and one game in the West. And the Big Ten Network has multiple channels. So when we're on the Big Ten, they might show 2 games
Oh, okay.
at 2:30.
Okay.
One in one area, but that you could watch either one of them, both in a national venue.
It
So-
seems like that Wisconsin and Penn State and
Michigan.
Michigan,
Ohio State.
Ohio State are on all the time.
I agree. We got to get that fixed, don't we?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
The
what I'm
Hawkeyes,
saying.
the Hawkeyes
Hooray!
we're probably on more than we think, although we always believe that our brand deserves to be on more often. One of the things we do face is our population base is smaller than some of those other schools, and so we just have to be that much better to get on more often in the night games or the national TV. And we've done that over the past 5 years.
But Gary, it's not then exactly equal then by exposure to, let's say, Indiana has to be on so many times, Iowa and Ohio's being an equal number.
It's not, you're right, it
It's
is
not
not,
an
and
equal
it has
number.
never been promised to us that we will be on
Okay.
exactly the same amount of
Because I
times.
wasn't aware of that.
What has been promised and what is unique in the Big Ten is we do equally share revenue.
Yes.
So that even if
Absolutely.
Michigan is on more often or Ohio
Right.
State is on more often, the revenue is shared equally.
Is that the same situation with the Pac-12, for example?
No, no
Their
other
network?
conference, well,
Do
they do
share
have a
equally?
network. They do not share equally in everything that they do. The Big Ten is unique in that particular approach, and our network is completely different. And it would take, we'd really have to sit down and break down the differences. But the Big Ten network is truly a national network.
Yeah.
It's available in, I think the number is now approaching 70 million homes.
Yeah.
And many of the other networks are not available on a national basis like that.
Now, the SEC's coming on board with a new network late this summer, right?
They are.
Yeah. Will that be a national network as well?
Yes and no, but the difference there is that one is the platform of that network is ESPN.
Okay.
So it's really
Right.
owned, it's not owned by the SEC, it's owned by ESPN.
And our affiliation, our network affiliation is with Fox Sports, correct?
The Big Ten, and the unique approach that the Big Ten has taken, the Big Ten and Fox own half of the network.
But ESPN owns the
100% of the SEC
100%.
network. Correct.
Now, I read that each SEC school is going to be getting $30 million this year.
I don't want to agree or disagree with that number. It sounds a little high to me. I think, as of today, I think the Big Ten still has the largest television payout.
How much is that going to be this year?
I think this year it's around $24 million. But again, without the numbers in front of me,
Yeah.
I know that the SEC, the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the Big 12, and the ACC, the 5 largest conferences,
The Power Five.
are all benefiting, and really the Big Ten network was the impetus.
Oh,
Once that was
yeah.
created, it really opened
It forced them to.
the
Yeah.
opportunities for all of the big
But
conferences.
how many schools are in the ACC?
ACC.
We got 14 schools now,
Well,
you have to remember
I
that.
think in those
65 schools.
65
In the
schools.
Power Five
Yeah.
conferences.
Is that right, Gary?
That's correct.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Mike Slive, the commissioner of the SEC, was just in St. Louis last week, and he kind of sent a volley across the bow of the NCAA, as you probably are aware, and he basically threatened that if the Power Five don't get what they're asking for in terms of decision making and the direction of the money, or control of the direction of the money, that the Power Five would form their own, as he called it, Division IV, and break from the NCAA. And
Well,
it's
there's
scary.
Well,
There's
good
not
things
there's
in
not
that.
an interest in doing that
Right.
by
Yeah.
Mike Slive or anybody else. But I thought the outgoing president at Florida did a really nice job. I don't know if you saw his
What's
comments.
his name?
I think it's Bernie Machen. I think
yeah.
is his name. But what I liked about the way he described it to me is a more realistic visual of where we sit right now. And for the most part, he said, we're really between a rock and a hard place. There's not an interest for the Big Five conferences to leave the NCAA. There's no interest or desire to do that. On the other hand, what's happened with the O'Bannon case, which is in the court system right now,
Former UCLA basketball player at
right,
O'Bannon.
using the likeness, and the less talked about, but probably more direct to what the concern is of the Big Five conferences. There are now 6 or 7 lawsuits that are where the big conferences are directly named in the lawsuits, and if we don't have the ability to respond to those concerns, and let's just use cost of attendance. That's the scholarship that we provide is wonderful, and I would, I don't agree with pay for play. I don't agree that student athletes aren't having a great experience. But what I do agree with, and I'm willing to talk about, and that's, could we modify the scholarship? Could we expand it? Could we do some things? Well, in the current structure, if the big 65 schools were to say, we'd like to do this, we're 65 of 340 schools, and immediately we get voted down. But the 5 big conferences are the ones who are being sued. And so the president from Florida, the outgoing president from Florida's response is, we're not desiring to leave, but we're in between a rock and a hard place because we're being sued on this end and we're outvoted on this end. And so I think what Slive's comments were, look, if we don't get this fixed, we'll have no choice.
Right.
So it was sort of a threat, but it wasn't a threat because, we're the big bad 5. It was a threat to say, if we don't fix this, we'll have no choice.
And it's going to come, the answers are going to come, I've read, in the next 2 months.
I think we'll
from the
definitely have
NCAA.
a clearer picture later this month. And by the way, Sally Mason has been a wonderful leader through all of this. She's currently the chair of the Big Ten presidents.
I didn't know
and
that.
she's been involved. She went through the difficulty while she was chair of the Penn State challenges, and she was strong through all of that. And right now, she's representing the Big Ten along with Nebraska's president, Harvey Perlman. They'll be representing our conference with Jim Delaney later this month
How
at
is he?
the NCAA meetings.
He talks quite well.
He is a brilliant person.
Who's
He's
brilliant?
I'm sorry.
Jim Delaney.
Oh, Jim Delaney.
Jim Delaney.
He is, before any of this was public, before the lawsuits occurred, he was the one pounding the drum saying, you know, we need to take a look at student athlete time demands. We need to take a look at scholarship support. We need to take, and he was talking about this long before it was popular to be talked about. And again, if it were just up to the Big Ten, if we were our own voting body, we would have, all of us in the Big Ten are supportive of these ideas, but it's just so difficult to get them passed through the NCAA. I'm cautiously optimistic that this summer we'll get enough traction to be able to get some of these changes and hopefully keep the collegiate model. And that's what's at stake here. For whatever reason, hundreds of years, well, more than 100 years ago, we decided in our country that it was a good marriage between education, university life, and sport.
And athletics, yeah.
Right.
It's as you guys all know, that's unique to anywhere else in the world. Everywhere else in the world, there are
Yes.
club teams, there are Olympic-style teams. We chose in this country to have the collegiate model, and I'm a product of it. Most of you are involved in it at some level or the other, and it's an awesome model. That doesn't mean it's perfect, and I think what we're going through right now are some pains and consternation. Hopefully, we can keep the collegiate model intact, modify it so that it's better, and then you know, when we have our next visit a year from now or whenever
Yeah,
it is,
I hope so.
we'll say, wow,
Yeah.
it all found its
Look
way
at all the
and worked
girls'
out.
teams we have now that we didn't have before.
Title IX, it's an interesting dynamic. So we have this
Oh, yeah.
lawsuit right now on the West Coast, the O'Bannon case. It's in trial right now. The judge that's hearing this case, we think we know how she's going to rule. And interestingly, as I listened to some of her comments, she's going to rule on her interpretation of this case and how it affects the law in this case.
And again, this is about
about
selling the image and likeness of a college scholarship athlete without paying him or her.
It's deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's about every time Iowa is on television, the court case in front of her right now is every student athlete who's playing in that game should get compensated. And the debate is, you know, there's a wonderful form of compensation through the scholarship.
For
But the
sure.
debate is, you know, is that going to be the decision of the court? I'm hearing this judge talk about, you know, she's going to make her decisions based on the merits of this case. But you mentioned something, there's other laws in play here, Title IX. And what I've heard, and I don't know if I'm totally accurate in this, if she judges that they should be paid part of that television money, she basically saying, I don't care about the fact that there's this other law called Title IX that you must be in compliance. So we'd have to so it's just a very complicated discussion.
Wow.
Again, I hope the
didn't
collegiate
realize.
model lands on its feet. I'm confident in some way, shape, or form it will. And then as a Big Ten and as the University of Iowa, we'll adjust and figure it out.
Well, the state of Iowa, I think, has always been ahead of the game when it comes to incorporating women and young girls into sports. Where I grew up in Illinois, I've said it a million times on this show, we didn't have any sports opportunities for girls at high school. And when I came to Iowa to college, I was amazed that girls basketball had been going on for nearly 100 years at that point. And here we are today with leaders like Dr. Christine Grant, Vivian Stringer, and now
Add Bump
Lisa
Elliott to
Blue.
that list.
Oh, you
Bump
bet.
was so wonderful
Yeah.
in working with Christine.
and she's mentioned that.
You know, when at a time when it wasn't maybe very popular. And
Yeah,
Bump,
that's right.
Bump is such a gentleman. He cares about people, and you know, when it's not easy to make those decisions, he was helping out.
Yeah, and I really like what Dr. Grant has said about Bump and how he never hesitated to meet her, never made obstacles in her path to this. He knew it was right.
And I've heard Hayden was supportive in that whole process as well. So I think we do have a good culture.
Yeah.
The other culture that we have in Iowa that maybe doesn't exist everywhere else, and maybe that's partly why we're here. You mentioned Northwestern. And I read a statement, and I always am hesitant to say, I don't know if it's true or not, but I read this in the media, that Kane Coulter had a quote that went something like, maybe we finally reached the point where student athletes don't have to pay their medical bills when they're injured, and I heard that comment, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up, because I've been involved in college athletics for almost 30 years, and I've never once dealt with a student athlete who was injured, either training or competing for our teams, that was forced to pay a bill. And so that's just not a true statement. Now, maybe he didn't say it, and maybe there's information he has that I don't have. But I just can tell you this: at Iowa, we pay. So the way this works is, if the student has their own health insurance, that kicks in first. If they don't have health insurance, then we backfill that with all coverage. And then for 2 years after they're done competing for the Hawkeyes, we still pick up their medical bills for any injuries that occurred while they were here. So we have a very progressive, and again, to your point, our culture at Iowa is very supportive, maybe ahead of the game in many ways.
Very, very supportive.
Do you think that's is that pretty consistent in the Big Ten, do you think?
As far as I know,
the policy that you have
It
at
is.
the University
as
of
far
Iowa?
as I know, any school at which I've worked, and I've worked at 5, and I'm pretty confident in saying.
Hard time keeping a job, Gary?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. As I told the president, as I've told President Mason, my goal is for this to be 5 of 5. So
good.
my goal would be
Yeah.
to be here until I'm done.
We had a football player by the name of Larry Ferguson.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
He was an All-American,
Roadrunner.
and he was a good friend of mine. And he was in the store, and he had scar tissue on his face,
Yeah.
up and all. all
Crossed his eye.
Yeah.
Yep.
Remember that,
And
yeah.
I said, why don't, we were talking, and I said, Larry, you got this. He said, I know. He said, what? I said, what do you know? He said, I'll have that forever. And I said, that's what I'm going to talk to you about. The University of Iowa will pay for that.
They fixed him, didn't
I
they?
haven't heard that story, but it doesn't surprise me.
Okay, he said,
Yeah,
oh, are you sure? And I said, yes. Jerry Burns, you go see him, and he'll fix.
Was that his head coach then at that time?
Yeah, he followed Evie.
Yeah.
The other thing that came out of that Northwestern discussion, and again, I think it was attributed to Kane Coulter, and I'm not trying to beat him up. I think this is factual.
He deserves it.
he does deserve it.
I'm not going to make that judgment, but I think the
Yeah.
other thing he said was maybe we've also reached a point where when someone is injured, they don't get their scholarship taken away. And I can tell you again, at the University of Iowa, every student athlete who comes into our program, if they are injured while they're here, and certainly while they're training or competing, we honor their scholarship until they're done with
That's
their
an
degree.
SEC thing, a Southeastern Conference thing. That's not a.
Well, and I don't even know if it's fair to say. My guess is most of our SEC colleagues have the same approach. I don't know that for sure, but
Let me finish my story. Anyhow,
I'm sorry I cut you off.
cut me off.
Larry
Anyhow,
I
Ferguson?
apologize.
anyhow
I thought you were done.
They fixed him up, didn't they?
they fixed it, and he came in the store. He's all wrapped up, and he said, I did what you told me to do, and he said everything is fixed. He said it was operated on immediately, and he said,
Have you seen him? Has Larry Ferguson come back?
I don't know.
You haven't run into him in
No.
recent years?
And I haven't, and he said it won't be perfect, but it'll be 60%.
That's a great story.
And
By the way, we're visiting today with Gary Barta, the athletic director at the University of Iowa. He's been gracious enough to squeeze a little time out for sports opinion. Before we carry on, I almost forgot. I want to just mention condolences to the family of Charlie Mason, former Hawkeye basketball MVP, longtime Iowa City area resident. He died at the age of 86 this week. A lot of us here in the community know the Mason family. I know I
Did
played
you know him
basketball with
pretty well,
Jeff.
Earl?
I knew him very well.
Yeah.
Very, very well.
So best wishes to the family of Charlie Mason.
And I knew his wife, he knew,
Yeah. That's
and he has beautiful children.
he lived a good life too.
Oh,
He was a
boy.
good man.
He's
To
second
his-
team All-American.
Do his children still live in the area?
Yeah. Yep, they do. Also want to congratulate both Coach Rick LaRue at Regina and Brad Stiles at West High. The boys soccer coaches at their respective schools just won another state title yesterday. For Regina, it was the 5th title in 6 years. And for West High, it was their 3rd straight title. and their 5th title in 6 years.
Isn't that something?
It's just amazing what West High and Regina and City High have produced athletically, and here we're talking boys soccer. Both those programs have, and City High have tremendous baseball teams.
You know,
Softball.
Thursday, Friday is a good time in high school.
Yeah.
Football.
Now, the girls are in the state, or soccer
Yeah,
state tournament.
that's right.
So, we want to make sure and congratulate
We get in
Brad
trouble if
Stiles
we
at West
don't
High
mention those
and
girls.
Rick LaRue at Regina for their long-term success with soccer in the state of Iowa. It's just incredible the dominance that those two
You know,
programs exhibit.
Rick LaRue is my doctor, and he said, "You're the luckiest guy in the world. I thought you'd never make it."
Yeah, yeah.
He's a good
Polio.
fella. He's done a great job out there at Regina,
Yeah.
but,
He's been your doctor for a while?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Especially when I had my stroke, he said, "You're a goner." He said, "You're really pretty tough."
He doesn't hold back, does he?
No.
You
No.
know,
I love your watch. I didn't catch that when I first came in, the 1991 Rose Bowl
Oh,
watch.
yeah.
Yep.
We got to get back there.
Yes, we,
I was just with Kirk, and I'm not uncomfortable telling you that he agrees. That would be a fun. That's one of the things he's done. So many things.
I think he knows it better than we all
We gotta
know
get
it.
there.
You bet.
We got to get there for Earl one more time for
It's
Earl.
It's a special place, as you all know, and it's a special game. So
Have you been to a Rose Bowl game before?
I have. When I was at the University of Washington as
Oh,
the senior
sure.
associate, we beat Purdue in the Rose Bowl, and I'll never forget standing down on that field before the game and listening to the crowd and the excitement of winning that game. It's a special experience, as Hawkeye fans know.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, I see that the athletic department's operating budget this year is going to be around $80 million. All of it self-sustained or self-funded. How do you spend $80 million this year?
Well, we can rattle off chunks, and the first one that
Scholarships.
that hits you $10.5 million, $10.5 million in scholarships,
Yeah.
right off the top, and the 88 million. That's actually going to be 88
Wow.
million, and to give it perspective, first of all, that's a lot of money.
You can turn some back in, though, if you don't spend it.
I'm sure we could. I've never had a problem spending it all. The opposite occurs. But to give you perspective, while that is a wonderful amount of money, and it's a lot of money, it's 8th in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Ohio State, Michigan, Nebraska, Penn State, Wisconsin, et cetera, are all larger budgets than Iowa. And I'm not saying that to complain. I'm just saying it as a point of reference. But quickly, when you talk about travel, when you talk about feeding student athletes, there's a new rule in feeding student athletes, and immediately, just in the new rule, it might be as much as another $1 million on top of what we're already spending, and recruiting, and
Sure.
et cetera, et cetera. About a third of our expense budget is salaries, and it's interesting. A lot is said about coaches' salaries and salaries. I looked back 20 years ago, and while the numbers in terms of size of budget are dramatically different, interestingly, if you talk to business people, it's not uncommon to have 30% of your expenses be dedicated to salaries.
Yep.
And 20 years ago, Iowa's athletic budget was about 30% towards salaries. And today, even though it's well publicized that some of the coaches' salaries are very large, it's about 30% of our budget.
Yeah.
Now, getting back to the scholarship thing you were talking about, I don't think a lot of fans realize that $10.5 million in scholarships, you write a check to the University of Iowa.
Bob, I think you're right, and we talk about it often. The
Yeah.
two things that I think are not, for whatever reason, we need to keep singing from the rooftop, so I'll say it again. Dirk, you alluded to it, and that is our $88 million budget is all self-generated. Hawkeye fans buy tickets, they contribute, they buy hats, T-shirts, etc. And so there are no general fund dollars, no tax dollars, no student fees, no university fees. And then the second part, Bob, to your point, we don't have tuition waivers. It's not as though the student athletes come in and the university just says, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It's The athletic department at the end of the year transfers, we used to write checks, now we transfer electronically
Yes.
that money over to the central campus budget.
Now, you mentioned that we are 8th in terms of
Budget size.
Who are the other 4 schools behind us? I mean, I would expect us to be last, just based on the size of our state, the population of our state.
What are your stadiums you'd have to go by?
You know, you make a great point, Bud, and that is that if you think about the largest budgets, it has a lot of correlation to the stadium size.
So
Yeah.
Indiana, Purdue, Northwestern would be behind us.
Correct.
And man, they're gonna raise the ticket.
Minnesota?
Michigan, you pay a lot more to
Minnesota,
go to
we're,
Michigan.
we're neck and neck budget-wise with
Yeah.
Minnesota, Illinois.
Oh, yeah.
What was
geez.
the budget when you came here, Gary, 8 years ago compared to now? It's $88 million.
It was
right?
probably in the high 50s, low
Okay. I was
gonna say
60s.
60.
It's been pretty significant growth pattern
Yeah.
during that time period, and so much of it is television driven.
Are all of the Big Ten schools athletic departments self-funded?
Not all of them, and I won't be able to tell you which ones are or aren't. And every institution's unique. I think more and more of the Big Ten schools are either there or close to there, and are probably on their way to getting there ultimately.
Does
Now,
the
is the
SEC?
80,000 include the 24,000 you get from
Million?
TV?
Million,
Or
but
million?
Yes, but
Yes, it is
It does-
inclusive
yes.
of.
Okay.
If you break down, so how do we generate $88 million? You have television revenue, you just mentioned, that's a big chunk. Ticket
Tickets.
revenue, which is a big chunk. And the iClub and the donations. Those are our 3 largest sources of revenue. And 20 years ago, ticket revenue was here and television revenue was there. Today, they're about even, and probably 10 years from now, television will bypass
where
ticket
does
revenue.
And
sales
salaries.
of
Salaries.
clothing and things like that rank?
It's a very significant amount of money, but it's probably more in the $3 million range.
So below tickets, below
Yes, yes.
everything else? Okay.
Tickets and television have sort of been neck and neck in the 20+ million. Last year we had an all-time record fundraising year of 28 million. Some of that goes to facilities, but those are our 3: tickets, iClub contributors. Thank you, Hawk fans on both of those, and then television. You know, the fact that people tune in
and
is-
salaries.
Yeah, yeah.
In regards to tickets, Gary, now you've sold more season tickets. You've increased that every year purposely, I think, is that
The number
right?
of tickets.
Yeah, the number of tickets, preseason, season ticket sales. Is that correct? Has that gone up?
It had-
seems like the numbers have.
It has gone up over the years. Some of that has changed. You know, we used to have to hold 5,000 for every visiting team. Now we only have to hold 3,000.
Yeah.
So we captured some there. You know, that's probably the
More
most
games,
dramatic
too.
change. More
Home
games.
Can I tell you one thing that bothers me, just from observation
Certainly.
from people that sit around me? We'll be in Kinnick and the stadium will be full, and you look down to the southwest corner where the students sit, and it's got the most vacant seats. How do we improve that?
Well, if we figure it out, we can call Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, because, and I
Same
say
deal.
that,
Yeah.
it is a national
Right, you
trend
find that
of
everywhere.
great concern. And
So
that is,
do we
what
sell
are,
more
how are
season
we,
tickets then?
well,
That's
how
what
are
I
we
figured.
failing our students? I mean,
Yeah.
that's my first question.
I don't
is-
think we're failing our students.
No.
No way. I think students, and it may come out sounding wrong, but they're lazy. They've got the game on TV. They stay up late, party,
But do they buy
games at
those
11
tickets ahead
a.m.
of time?
You know, I think you're
yeah,
right.
true.
I'm not at all willing to say they're lazy.
I'm not putting
what
words in
I'm
your mouth.
what
Yeah.
I'm willing to say.
I am, though.
What I'm willing to say is we now have an entire generation that walk around with these computers,
Right, yeah.
and on this
Yeah.
computer, and I have 2 teenagers myself. They watch everything on here. They have video, and they have
Yeah.
texting, and when when you and I grew up. And when Murph started going to games,
Just, all right.
but we used to go to the game and we didn't even have a phone with us. We just went to
Murph
watch
would
the
ride
game.
his dinosaur to the games.
Murph went with the Bremer sport coat and tie years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody dressed
Top
up.
hat.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so today we have to figure out a way. And again, this isn't an Iowa problem. This
No.
is a national
That's
problem.
right.
I didn't know
watch
that.
him in the
Okay.
stadium. watching the game on the
Yeah.
On their
cell
phone.
phone, right?
And technology hasn't yet caught up. In NFL stadiums or anywhere else, when you have 70,000 people together, there's not enough data capacity for kids or adults
Yep.
to be watching video while they watch the game.
We had Wisconsin Red.
Oh, it's not. Gary and I talked about that afterwards, and we're not going to bring it up now. But
You know what? We try a lot
I'm
of
just
things.
kidding.
No, we try a lot of things, and sometimes we make mistakes, and that was one of them.
I want to bring up something really positive and really kind of sad at the same time. A friend of Sports Opinion, longtime friend of Sports Opinion, and the longtime Hawkeye track and field coach, Larry Wazorek, is coaching his last event this week as we speak. He's out in Eugene, Oregon, with his 400 relay team. Are there others?
Well, actually, there are two 400 relay teams, a men's and a women's.
Oh, yeah.
And then there are some event. I mean, I think we have 11 or 12 student athletes
Yeah.
representing us.
He's
And
retiring.
Larry announced he's retiring just last week. He had actually told me about this about 4 months ago, but he wanted to wait until the end of the season. And you're right, it's a happy, sad moment. My favorite moment, and I've only been here for 8 years, but my favorite moment since I've been here was being at the 2010 Outdoor Track Championships,
yes.
Big Ten Championships. And what was so fun, certainly it's always fun to win a championship, but for me what was so fun is to see Larry's excitement. And then to have Larry in the moment remind me that the last time we had won the championship was when he was on that track as a student athlete.
67.
Wow.
67.
And I get goosebumps just
Yeah.
thinking about the excitement our student athletes had that day, watching
Alumni,
Larry
too.
and being out there to just soak in that moment. And so there have been a lot of amazing moments. I had somebody yesterday tell me that Larry Wazorek is one of the people, we all have people when you see them coming in the grocery store or down the street, there's some where you want to duck and
Yeah.
pretend like you're reading.
Big smile.
And there's some where you just can't wait to say hi. And
Yeah.
Always
Larry's in the
happy,
latter
always
category.
happy.
I know a lot of them would dodge me.
Larry Wazorek has been with the Iowa track and field program for nearly 50 years. Whether he was a student athlete or an assistant coach, cross-country coach, track and field coach, he's been there that long. And like Gary said, he's just a heck of a guy. And I love the way you put that. Some people you see, maybe a dodge, but when you see Larry, you just go right for him.
Yes.
And he does the same to you. That's
Yeah.
the thing. He can't wait to talk to you. We had him on the show right after they won that Big Ten outdoor
Yeah.
title. And it was such a fun show.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was such a happy
Yeah.
guest on our show.
And to win it here, on the home
Oh,
track.
so cool.
So again, that will be a moment in time when I write the book someday. That'll be one chapter.
Yeah.
Do you know what he's going to do afterwards?
You know what? The best person to ask is
Yeah.
him. But I really believe, there's all points in our life where something happens and we sort of say, And I think his pause moment, and I don't want to speak out of school too much, his wife had a very significant accident about, I don't remember now if it was a year or two ago. And again, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I really think that got the two of them to say, you know what, we still have a lot of things we want to do. And maybe it's time to stop coaching track and just doing things together as a couple. And so
I don't know how you replace a guy like that.
it will be a challenge without
Good
question.
luck.
Now, I will tell you this. Under his leadership, we have several assistant coaches who are incredibly talented. They're known across the country in their particular events as some of the best in the country. So don't be shocked if our successor is somebody that you've heard of.
Lane and Joey, we all know and are great people.
Yeah.
that'd
And
be
Scott
great if it was
Kapos
him.
and Clive.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we have some expertise on that team. It's a credit to Larry to bring in people that, and I know he wouldn't mind me saying, people that are smarter than him and even more talented than him, that he's been comfortable leading all these years. And so my goal, and I think we'll be able to pull it off, is to pick up one of that group and hopefully we can keep everybody together. That's what we've told them.
Well,
We want to keep the group together.
Well, getting back to what Larry's gonna do when he does retire, I mean, there's three of us in this room that are retired. He's gonna do what his wife tells him to do. That's what he's gonna do.
You mean
one of
I'm
the
not?
best-
You mean I'm not retired? I do that now.
You do
Am I
that
not
now,
supposed to
that's
do
right,
that?
yeah.
One of the best things he did, though, I thought, was having that night
oh yeah.
track
The
thing.
must go track.
Yeah.
that's-
Everybody in the state of Iowa wanted to come here and see a track meet.
That's been a wonderfully successful event.
And it's such a visual when you go by
Right.
there at
I know.
night. I just love. My dad was an old track and field coach, and I
Yeah.
just love seeing that.
And having it on the Big Ten Network, they've been wonderful in picking that up. So it's been
And then rerunning it,
yeah.
which I really like. Larry's a good one, and Larry, if you're watching, you earned it. Thank you very much for your commitment, and gosh, we're going to miss you. But I got a feeling we'll be seeing him around town and at all those track meets. On the other end of the spectrum, you've hired a new volleyball coach, and he has not only Iowa ties but Iowa City ties. Bond Szymanski.
Yes.
Well,
Tell
I'll
us a
tell you
little bit
what,
about Bond.
He spoke at the quarterback club,
Yeah.
and that young man is impressive,
Passionate.
passionate. He's going to get it turned around. I really think
There's
so.
no doubt in my mind. Bond and I got to know each other a little bit about 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And we had some conversations. He was at Georgia Tech at the time, and that's where I started to learn about his Iowa City ties.
Yeah.
And he and I would both agree that it wasn't time. You know, everything happens in a season. There's a season for everything, and it wasn't yet time for him to come back. He then went from Georgia Tech to Marquette. In both cases, he did an amazing job. One of the things I love about the coaches that we have, I love to talk to coaches or hire coaches at Iowa who started in high school, or they started
Yes.
at a level that they got into it just because they love to teach and they love the sport. And Bond is in that category. I think he did some coaching at City High. I think he did some at Regina
Yep.
and maybe West.
Yep.
But he's gone on to have this wonderful career at Georgia Tech and Marquette.
He tells good stories too.
He's a great storyteller.
Yeah.
I'll that's good, but that's not what I'm after. I think he's already received 8 commitments, 8 commitments to future Hawkeyes,
Wow.
and I agree. He gets it. He's good at what he does, and he loves being in Iowa City.
And
Well, he brought
the
a
state
couple
of
of his
Iowa, as
assistants
far as
with
I'm
him.
concerned, has
Yeah.
some of the best volleyball
Yep.
teams.
Yeah.
And he would agree
In the
with you.
nation, right.
And so he's definitely going to start right here in our state, get the best in our state,
Yeah.
and then go out after that to fill it in.
Good.
That'd make us all happy, too.
That's encouraging.
And you've got a new baseball coach who just finished his first year at the helm, Rick Heller.
Yeah.
Wow, what he did in his first year. He got us into the Big Ten tournament. And that's
30 wins?
Yeah, 30 wins. I just saw where the Cardinals just signed our left-handed pitcher. Oh, gosh, I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden. Sasha Kubel.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they signed him. He's gone.
Darn.
Yeah. But
That is a challenge because Sasha was a great. He was probably our lead arm this
Yep.
past year. But it's a sign that on the positive. The glass half full sign is we had 3 guys drafted, and that's a good thing.
Yes,
That
it
that
is.
shows that
That's right.
we have the right people in the program.
And the kids will come if they know they're going to be
Exactly.
drafted.
So Rick's off to a great start. I told him, I said, one of the things that impressed me, when you and I made the difficult decision to drop baseball, I watched the way Rick handled that. He was obviously hurt, but he handled it with so much class. The first thing he did is he went and made sure that all of his student athletes were placed into new programs. The next thing he did is he made sure his assistant coaches got jobs, and it wasn't until he took care of that he went out and started looking for a job for himself. He had UNI's best years ever. He
Yes,
then went
he
on
did.
to Indiana State, had their best
Had
years
their
ever.
best ever.
He has before UNI, he had done some great things in the state of Iowa. There again, there's a lot of good baseball being played in the state of Iowa.
right.
You bet.
And Rick is focused on getting that group to come to Iowa and then again going out beyond that.
That's
Yeah.
so good.
Great start for Rick
Can't
and
wait
his staff.
can't wait. I already can't wait for the baseball season to begin for Iowa. Do you ever see a day when NCAA baseball will be played in the summer when baseball's supposed to be played?
Boy, I'd love it. We've been working
Wouldn't
on it for years.
It'd be great.
Yeah.
We got the
Yeah.
It
facility.
might balance out
Beautiful.
things.
Which
where-
is exactly why the southern schools won't support it, is
You
they
bet.
know that it
Sure.
would give us a more even footing.
Better believe it. Some other things on the horizon. You've got a new football facility that's still in progress. Can you update us on that? What to expect? When will it be finished?
It's beautiful.
It is a gorgeous facility, and we did the stadium first, and that was back in '06, and credit to Bob Bowlesby
Yep.
and all the contributors and everybody who chipped in there. That was for fans. That was the fan experience portion. And then we knew we needed to upgrade our practice facilities, our training facilities, our office space, and so it's been a long time. That we first started working on that project in 2006. And here we are in 2014. It takes a long time from conception to completion, and it's a $55 million project. And because we don't receive any state money, we've been raising money since '06. We've had some unbelievable support, some great contributions. And finally, at the end of this summer, early fall, we're going to open that building. As you all know,
They're going to be moved in it by then?
well, we put phase one in last year.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
where we opened the new indoor
practice
facility. The rest of it will open late this summer, early this fall. This winter,
Wow.
anybody who did any construction this winter knows it was a brutal winter.
Yeah.
And because of that, we're not exactly sure when it's going to be done, but sometime this fall, it's going to be completed, and it is going to be as good as anywhere in the country. And most
yes.
importantly, we have the outdoor practice field. You then go into the indoor space. You then go into the operations center, and right across the street, across the parking lot, is Kinnick.
Kinnick, yeah.
It's as good a
Yes.
setup as anywhere in America. And for the next 40 to 50 years, we're set in terms of a foundation.
What will go into the current football offices?
We're still working on that. One of the things, breaking news right here
All
on
right.
this show.
All right.
One of the
Beep, beep, beep,
things I'm pretty sure I'm going to do is this fall take the strength and conditioning room that's currently occupied by football and turn that into indoor batting space for both baseball and softball.
Oh, good.
Now, that may or may not be a long-term decision, but at least for the next year or two, we'll do that while we're trying to figure out exactly what we're going to do with the rest of the space.
And that's close for them too.
And both softball and baseball's locker rooms are down in the lower
Right.
area. So the student athletes will be able to go in, go to their locker room, go upstairs, do their batting in the winter, and then go back down to their locker room, take a shower, and go to class.
And since you've taken over just recently, the golf team, which Mark Hankins is just an incredible men's golf coach, the golf team has surpassed expectations, and now they have a new practice facility, which Mark came on the show and told us all about when it happened, when it opened.
Yeah.
And
What a
soccer,
job he's
you've got
done.
new soccer facility on the west campus as well, right across from Finkbine. Now, the marching band has its own practice facility, and I was told just this weekend that we were the last Big Ten school to have a marching band practice field that was, I guess, athletic turf and even and dedicated just for the band. And I'm kind of sad to lose the marching band from our neighborhood because it was such a part for generations, for our kids. And
Especially during fall when the leaves were changing. To listen to them was
Where
great.
is the new facility? Where's the new field
Right.
at?
It's down on what I have dubbed, it's not official name, but I call it the Hawkeye campus.
Yeah.
And that's sort of West Campus, out by the tennis center,
Hall of Fame.
by the
Oh,
Hall of
okay,
Fame,
okay.
soccer, field hockey, and now you're seeing a new indoor space that will go up, and it'll be shared, as many of our facilities are, rec
Yeah.
services, athletics, and in this case, the marching band.
Yeah.
They'll have an indoor space, and then as you go out, they'll also have an outdoor space.
Yeah.
Good.
And I know there are a lot of gopher holes and rolling areas in that old facility or the old location, but
Yeah.
it was nice to have them there. We're really going to miss them, and I hope that maybe once a year they could come back and do a little something for the kids in the neighborhood.
Now, is
'cause-
the old location owned by the University of Iowa?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
And I don't know what the plans are with that
Okay.
space.
yeah. And I talked to Rod Leonardson. He said there are no plans.
Leaves the truck there for a while.
I bet they do.
Okay, truck.
I bet they do. Let's see here. I wanted to ask you. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about Lisa Bluter. We love Lisa Bluter.
It's a great
And,
topic.
Yeah.
What she has done and continues to do, as I may remind you and the viewers, the most winningest, the winningest basketball coach, men's or women's, in Hawkeye history. And she's got a long way to go. And she's coming off another incredible season. And I think incredible because she does more with less than any other Big Ten women's or men's coach, maybe, for that matter.
Boy, and she's recruiting strong.
And this recruiting
Yeah.
class coming in, I think, is the best she's ever had. Her coaching staff, her players, they're all just, I think, great citizens, great people. Love to have them in our community. And I want you to talk about your
I don't know if I
experiences
can add
with
anything
this.
to that.
Yeah,
You've said all the things, and I mean that sincerely. Maybe I can add to that a couple of fill-ins, and that is almost every one of her student athletes graduate. She
Yes.
brings in young women who not only can they shoot, jump, and rebound, they also are committed to getting a degree at the University of Iowa, which is critical. She went to her 7th straight NCAA tournament. No other Big Ten coach has done that, and only 13 programs in America have done that. And thanks to Hawkeye fans, we once again were in the top 25 in the country in attendance. And we have a saying in the department, and I have a milking stool in my office, and it's painted black, and on the top it says, "Win, graduate, and do it right." Those are the 3 legs of the stool. And we talk about how if you don't do all 3 of those things with the same commitment, passion, and intensity, the stool will tip over.
Where'd you
And
get
Lisa,
that? Where'd you get something like that?
I don't know. We just came up with it, and
Oh, I see. Oh.
and Lisa is a great example of win, graduate, do it the right way. Her stool never tips over because she does all 3 with the same focus and passion. And I can say that
Toot your
about.
horn a little bit about the graduation rates. They're pretty darn good.
Well, we had our all-time record this past
Yeah.
year,
Is that right?
88% graduation success rate.
That's across the board.
That's all
That's
student
amazing.
athletes. And
That's really it.
Kirk's team, another.
88.
So you have Lisa's team. Kirk's team had the 3rd highest graduation rate in the Big Ten. And who do you think? And we're almost always 3rd. So give a guess.
Northwestern?
Northwestern is always number 1.
Michigan?
No,
No.
Oh, Purdue,
no.
not Nebraska.
Well,
That's because the
Eliminate
N
that.
stands
once
for
again,
knowledge.
you said that, I didn't. Historically,
Penn State.
almost every
Yeah.
year, Northwestern finishes first, Penn State second.
Yeah.
And thanks to Kirk, and Kirk would tell you thanks to Hayden and,
Yeah.
a tradition that's been longstanding at the University of Iowa, Iowa's the 3rd
That's
highest
great.
graduation rates.
That is really great.
We should be proud of that.
Joe?
They should write about that stuff more than,
Well, we put it out there all the time. Thank you for bringing it up, Bob. We talk about it whenever we have a chance, and it usually doesn't get front page coverage.
no, way in
Yeah,
the back.
that's right.
Well, and we were talking about Lisa Bluter. She's another one. When you see her coming, she's got a smile, and she's not somebody you want to avoid. She's just a wonderful.
She's got a beautiful family. David's a great Hawkeye.
Yeah.
The family is just fun to watch their kids grow up.
And she gets her coaches and her players involved in different community things,
Well,
like at
that's
homecoming.
right.
I remember homecoming parade last year. I've got the kids up there on the curb, and here comes the entire basketball team and coaching staff. And then Lisa sees you and says, "Hey, Dirk." And you're going, "Oh,
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
it just, your heart melts."
Well, St. Mary's, for years,
Oh, they still
has that breakfast, or that chili supper.
chili supper
Yeah.
on Sunday
Tonight,
night. Yep, in
And she
season.
brings all the players.
Yeah, and
You
it's
know,
a treat to serve them.
She
Yeah.
believes, as do all of our coaches, that that Iowa's a special place, and we're a little biased, but one of the things that our coaches buy into, and that is maybe we don't have as large a population base as some other Big Ten schools or national schools. So we need to be an integral part of the fabric of this community because it's just part of who we are and who it feels right. And Lisa buys into that and has for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, that's right. Do you want to talk about the Northwestern Union situation? Do you want to bring?
Yeah,
that
we
up?
did a little bit.
A little bit,
I'll tell you what I want to ask about, and I think I already know the answer, but the the Nebraska football game with Iowa has recently been on Friday after Thanksgiving. And I'm just going to tell you, I don't like it because it wrecks my Thanksgiving holiday. I can't
love it.
travel. There are people like Bud who live here whose family comes here.
Welcome
and
to my
love it.
world.
Yeah.
Any decision we make,
Yeah.
I've got a certain percentage
You
that hate
can't
it, and
win.
a certain percentage that like it.
Well, I don't
And
hate it.
I get both. I get both
Oh,
arguments.
I love to watch it.
Yeah.
On TV the day after Thanksgiving.
I
But it's
like-
hard for me to be here, and I'm a guy that's gone to every single home game since '77, almost. I didn't go to a Nebraska game when it was here a year ago.
Right.
I don't know what I'm going to do this year, but I got a feeling I'm going to be there
We need
for
you
this
there.
one.
I like football at 1:00 on Saturday.
The old school way.
I like
Oh, yeah,
it
that
then,
would be
and
preferred.
occasionally I really enjoy the atmosphere at night, once or twice a year. I miss
yeah.
last year and this year not having a night game. Kirk and I both would love
Okay.
just
I agree.
just one or two a year.
What about?
But I agree with you. I like the consistency of 1:00
Yeah.
And television has changed that.
We'll
without
never
a
see
doubt.
that
Never
again.
Never again, anywhere except Division III.
That's right.
Now, there's no night games this year?
No?
Nope.
Correct.
What about night? We talked about night games. What about night games in November? Is that coming to the Big Ten?
Not wholesale. I don't think
good.
the weather just isn't
Ooh,
conducive in this
it
part of the
isn't.
country. However,
Think about that Michigan game last year and how I've never endured anything like that at a Hawkeye game. And you know it's cold when you take a sip of your beer and you look back on the beer can and it's all frozen. That's not good.
thank goodness, that game ended in a win, because then somehow it takes some of the pain out of
It
that.
did.
That's true.
But night
That was
games
cold.
in the Big Ten in November probably won't become a steady diet. But I could see, if both teams agree, I could see doing one in the first week of November, or our November 1st game against Northwestern. I told the Big Ten I would have been happy, and Northwestern was willing. I would have played that game as a
Yeah.
night game
Yeah.
on November 1st, but
I don't mind that either.
it just
First
didn't
part.
work out. But I don't. Not late in the year. It's too cold.
But can they change any of these games? They
No.
can change them. They
The
can?
night games, by contract, have to be decided in the spring now, and can't be
Oh.
changed once we go into the season.
Yeah, and it still
Okay,
it all
so-
gets back to
Well, that
how
don't
many
bother me.
television
I just-
sets are in the
yeah,
state.
Yeah.
Well, and there's too much planning that goes in to change a game into the night late. It affects hotels, it affects travel. So the commitment by television is that they make their decision. I think it's April, and then the night games are set for the year.
Okay.
Okay.
Bob, you had a question, I believe? We just got a couple
Well,
minutes left with
no,
Gary Barta.
The only question I had is, and Gary answered it, is if, for example, Wisconsin and Iowa are fighting for the Western Division, they wouldn't change the time to a night game.
Well, they
prime
won't
time.
change it to a night game, but they could move it to 2:30.
2:30.
That's open.
That would be the, yeah.
2:35.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
right.
that's closer to what you were saying. I love 1 o'clock. 2:30 is still good.
Well, at 2:30, you'd get a night game late in the second half. when
It
they
would be
turn on the
dark.
lights.
We'd have to have the lights on.
In November.
No question.
Yeah, okay.
Be cold.
But it's still 2:30. It's not waiting until
Right,
7.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I don't like waiting for those night games.
No,
Drives
I
me
don't
nuts.
I don't either, but I will admit that the electricity, I remember that Penn State game.
Yeah.
The electricity that
Yeah.
it can generate is pretty
Yeah.
special.
That's true.
Wow.
The
And
Michigan game.
Joe Murphy, our man behind the camera, has asked me to ask you about the new sound system at Kinnick.
What did you say? We installed new video boards. I couldn't resist.
It's loud over there.
We installed new video boards a year ago, and
Yeah.
we're still working on improving the visual presentation. The sound group told me to wait a year,
Ah.
and right now the way our sound system works, if we turn it up on one end, it's too loud for a certain group,
Yeah.
but it's not loud enough for another group. So the new sound system will provide more of a consistent sound level across the stadium.
Okay.
We'll look forward to
Now,
that.
what do you do on Monday? Answer all these complaints?
I joke, my family on Saturday night, on those occasions where we do lose, I have thousands of advisors, and
I bet you do.
they let me have it on Saturday night.
I wouldn't want your
But it's
job.
I'd rather have that than have silence, because there's passion.
Yeah.
And even though some of it gets a
Yes,
little
right.
misplaced, I'm glad we have it.
You don't go out on the town on Saturday nights when we lose, do you, Gary?
I do not.
Fellas, I hate to do this, but we have run out of time. We've been visiting with Gary Barta, the athletic director at the University of Iowa. Gary, thank you very much for appearing on Sports Opinion. We'd love to have you every year, and it's just you answer questions easily and honestly, and for that we thank you very
Well,
much.
thank you for having me back. It's
been
good to
great.
be back. The Knights of the Round Table.
Yeah.
I guess it's a square table.
Kind of a half moon table with us. But you can watch Sports Opinion every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. on Channel 18 and every Sunday night at 6 p.m., same channel, 18. You can also go to PATV.tv and watch the show, or you can go to my Facebook page and watch it there too. On behalf of Bob Boyd and Bud Supel and Earl Murphy, I'm Dirk Keller, thanking Gary Barta for being our guest and thanking you for watching Sports Opinion on PATV. And remember this, either you're a Hawk or you're not. Go Hawks.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right,
gentlemen.
we did it.